Alright, today we'll be tearing apart a Suzuki King Quad 300. We'll start by tearing the head apart, cam, cylinder, the piston. We'll pull a stator, magneto, then we'll go to the clutches, centrifugal clutch, clutch basket, starter, the shift linkages here, CV shafts off the back, and then we'll split the case. So first thing we'll want to do is pull the cam chain tensioner, and you want to do this first so that you don't have too much pressure put on the cam chain when you're trying to pull that head. So if you leave this tensioner engaged, it will push on that cam chain, it'll pull that cam up when you are pulling this head cover. So once you get that cam chain tensioner off, that handful of 10mm bolts here. This is your decompression lever there. And that bolt does go all the way through, so we do need to pull that. Sometimes those decompression levers just hold the decompression lever, not the actual head cover on. So there is the head cover there. Then we've got your cam. And what we'll do is, since we've got this cam chain tensioner out, we've got a little bit of movement there with that chain, and we'll have to remove that sprocket. So we'll turn the motor to where we can get to that. The 10mm bolt holding this cam sprocket on. Then we'll remove one of the bolts for the cam chain. And then we'll go and do the same thing on this other one. Little keeper holding that bolt from spinning. Now we'll be able to pull that sprocket off of there. Make sure we don't drop that bolt down in there. We'll pull the sprocket off the cam. Then we'll pull that cam out. There's the cam shaft. And here is the sprocket for it there. So we'll go ahead and put this back on here. We'll put these bolts back in. That way we have it all together. Okay, now we'll go ahead and pull that head, and we'll pull this intake boot there. Those have a tendency to dry up and crack, and so this one looks like it's in good condition. I'll take an impact screwdriver. Sometimes these are difficult to get apart because, or to get these screws out because of the heating and cooling process. A lot of times that kind of really holds these screws in there. Alright, there's your intake boot there. Again, they kind of crack in those creases, or right here where that clamp is. It's not the case on this one. So we'll go ahead and remove this head. We've got four 14mm, 12mm bolts here. These are going to be torqued down, so you want to make sure, going back together, that they are re-torqued. And as you can see, they're fairly snug. Check your manual for tolerances there. Now here's a guide bolt here. And we'll go ahead and pull that now so we can pull that guide. Again, that's a 12mm. Pull it out the side there, and that's holding one of your guides in for your cam chain. So then that head is ready to come off. And, we've got two 10mm screws on the side here. This is on the cam chain side. And then right underneath there is two nuts to hold that cylinder on. So as soon as we're ready to pull that cylinder, we'll have to loosen those two 10mm as well. Alright, now that cylinder head will come off. So there's your cylinder, there's your exhaust valve there, there's your intake valve there. Just 2-valve head. Now we've got your cylinder here and your piston down in there. Here's the other guide. And then we will have to, if you can see these here, we'll have to pull these 10mm bolts, and then we'll be able to pull that cylinder. And after we get this cylinder pulled, we'll pull the piston. All right. Okay, and it was a dowel pin here, and must have had some dirt or something building up. Wasn't allowing that to slide off. So there's your cylinder. Now if you're going to turn your motor over at this point, hang on to your cam chain so that your cam chain doesn't go down into your cylinder and bust your case. So to remove this cam chain now, we'll take a small screwdriver or a pick and put your screwdriver or pick in the groove and kind of pry that circlip out. Sometimes a pick with a bit of an angle on it works better. Something like this, a little hook. That way you can kind of just turn it out. And then make sure you keep your finger on it so that it does not fly across the room. This piston's in good condition. And then you just push that pin out the other side, but then you can just push it right back down in there. You gotta make sure that there's no grooving there, no scoring. And then we'll put that clip back in. You just put one side of it in, just the opposite of how we took it apart. So, and then just push it in like that. And then we'll actually sell those together. So now we will pull some of these oil lines to get that mess out of there. Then we'll pull the stator cover. So the oil lines are on the right hand side of the motor, and we'll tip this up so you can see what we're doing here. All it is 4 Allens holding those hoses in. We've already drained most of that oil, so we'll have some come out with these lines, but just take and turn these and they'll be sealed with an O-ring. And sometimes you want to make sure you get your Allen wrench good and seated in there before turning it. That way you don't spin a hole in those, or round off those Allens. So these oil lines will go from here, from the bottom of the engine to the oil cooler. There's one hose there. And then the other hose is more on the bottom. And once you get them loosened up, you can use an Allen socket. I just don't like to use them to start. Just too easy to round those off. So that's both oil lines there. This one again has some oil still in it. And since we've got this side pulled up, we'll just pull this clutch cover now. We've got 8mm bolts holding these covers on. We've got your oil filter here. And so to replace that oil filter, you got 3 10mm bolts around the outside. Here's how you adjust your clutch here. 12mm loosen that lock nut, and then you just need to either screw in this Phillips or screw it out. Okay, 10 8mm bolts going around the outside. Again, take a hammer, kind of break that seal, and that cover should just come off. We'll go ahead and pull this oil filter cover right now as well. Just tap on that. We already pulled those 3 10mm bolts, but then we can get that to drain as well. Always want to replace an oil filter whenever you're doing anything with the motor. And we've got your centrifugal clutch here, we've got the inner shoes, we've got the outer housing. This is a common problem if these get grooed or these shoes wear down. That needs replaced. We've got your clutch basket here, friction and steel plates. And this is that clutch adjustment that we just pulled that cap to see. We'll go ahead and pull that centrifugal clutch assembly off. And the clutch basket. An 1 1/16 nut on this one here. You want to make sure you hold something when you're removing this so it doesn't spin everything. Alright, and this is reverse threaded. So that means to spin this nut off, you want to turn it clockwise. There's your centrifugal clutch there. You've got a one-way bearing here. Sometimes that'll fail. We've got your clutch basket here. We'll pull this arm off. It's a 10mm from the bottom here. Alright, we've got that arm off. I'm going to put that bolt back down there. Okay, we'll pull these 4 10mm bolts. And we'll leave this kind of together. And we've got your clutch springs here. We've got the 1 1/16 holding onto the clutch basket. This is just regular threads, so you just spin that off counterclockwise like you would anything else. Okay, and once you get that nut off of there, you can pull that clutch assembly off. Now we'll take and put the springs back in there so this is all kept together. When you put this back together, you're able to pull all of this out together. I don't want to do it here until I get some pressure on there, or it kind of loosens everything up. But to get like that, then you can pull this out and have that separate. So you can inspect this, make sure there's not major grooving on the plate there, on the basket. And that's your clutch pack there. You got your shift linkage here. We have your oil pump down here. We'll pull this gear at this time. And then there's a little, I'll spin this motor so you can see there's a little pin on the bottom of this, or on this crank here. You know, make sure you pull that, because when you're splitting that case, your crank will get held up on that pin. You can damage that crank by pulling too hard on that pin. So it's just a little keeper here to keep that gear in place. You just take and pull it out. Sometimes it'll fall out, but you want to make sure you know where that's at. Pull the oil pump here. We'll pull this little clip. Just take a little flat screwdriver, get in behind that, and pull it that way. And we're able to pull that gear off of there. Now this pin, same thing, will fall out unless you remove it. So we'll just pull that out now. And then we'll take and pull the oil pump. Alright, and then wiggle that pump out of there. Now you can put pressure on the bottom with your finger. put this pin back through, put this gear back on, and then we can just put that clip back on there. And you'll want to use a pair of pliers or something to put that clip back on. Just be careful it does not go zinging across the room. There you go, there's your oil pump there. There we've got your speedo gear here. Two 8mm bolts there, we'll pull that. We've got a bevel gear back here. This will tell the speed. This will send the odometer reading to the dash. You've got your shift linkages here, and we will go ahead and pull those. A couple 10mm bolts. This is spring loaded. This is your shift star here. And we've got a 12mm. That's also spring loaded. So we'll be able to pull this up. We'll put this all back together, kind of keep it together and so all this set. There's a linkage there. It'll just come right off there, but you want to make sure that these pins don't fall out or you lose them. So we'll keep those all in one spot. Linkage here has a spring, or this little arm has a spring that you can just unhook. This one here, must be something holding that one in. Alright, now we'll flip this over. Right now I guess we'll pull this other starter bolt here, holding the starter in. And that starter will be ready to come off.